I cannot reveal my name. What I am about to expose is dangerous, and if my identity were known, they would come for me. I have served as a medical doctor in the American Army for 48 years, dedicating my life to projects far beyond what the public could ever imagine. Many of these were positioned as advancements for the good of society, but in truth, they were carefully orchestrated agendas meant to control, weaken, and manipulate the masses. With my colleagues, I worked on government-sponsored medical projects, initiatives hidden behind classified doors, all designed to alter the natural course of human life. Some aimed at birth control and population reduction, others at manipulating the aging process. We engineered medications that would either accelerate aging or delay it unnaturally. We developed drugs to weaken immune systems under the guise of disease prevention. We worked on neurological inhibitors to subtly reduce human intelligence over generations. There were even projects to enhance obedience through chemical modifications, making populations more susceptible to control. For years, I justified my actions, believing I was serving a higher purpose, protecting the nation in ways beyond traditional warfare. But deep inside, I knew something was wrong. I began asking questions that were never meant to be asked. Then, something happened that changed everything. That night, as I drove home, I saw a shadow by my car window. It wasn't human. A figure, tall and cloaked in darkness, held an axe in its hand, its presence suffocating. My heart pounded as I gripped the steering wheel. I reached for the firearm in my glove compartment, but before I could react, my car spun out of control. The world blurred. The crash was sudden, and then silence. I was dead. I saw myself floating. My body lay crushed in the wreckage, but I was above it, weightless, drifting into an unfamiliar space. I wasn't alone. Souls moved around me, silent, aimless, as if pulled by an invisible force. There was no speaking, no recognition, just movement. Then, suddenly, I was pulled away from them. An unseen force drew me to a presence, a being unlike anything I had ever encountered. It stood tall, so tall that I could not see where it ended. Its presence was overwhelming, yet I felt no fear. Without words, I knew I had to follow. The being guided me through a strange, empty space. I wasn't walking, I was floating beside it, moving forward as though pulled by an invisible force. Everything around us was dark, but I could sense other beings in the distance. They didn't say anything, they didn't even look at me, but I couldn't take my eyes off the being beside me. It was so tall, I couldn't see the top of it. Then, in an instant, we arrived at a place I recognized. It was the lab. I had spent many years here, working with others on secret projects. The room looked the same, the shiny steel counters, the smell of chemicals in the air, the soft buzzing of lights above. It felt like everything was exactly as it was before. But there was one thing that caught my attention, a calendar on the wall. I walked closer to it, and the date jumped out at me, June 2nd. That day meant something to me. I knew it right away. It was the day when we started a big project, something that was supposed to help people. I turned, and I saw my team. They were dressed in lab coats, standing around a machine, working like they always did. They were focused, busy. The air smelled like it always did, clean, sterile, with that sharp scent of chemicals. I moved closer to get a better look, wondering why I was seeing all of this. Was it a memory? A warning? Then I saw it. A small bottle of medicine being passed from one person to another. It didn't look like anything special, just a regular bottle of painkiller. But as I moved closer, something changed. I knew what it was. It wasn't just a painkiller. It was something far more dangerous, something that was going to cause problems for a lot of people. I could see what would happen next. People would take this medicine and think it was helping them, that it was a miracle cure for pain. They'd believe it was the answer they had been waiting for. But after a while, things would change. The medicine would start messing with the body's natural way of feeling pain. People would need to take more and more of it to feel better. And when they tried to stop taking it, they would suffer even worse. The pain would come back, but it would be different, worse, harder to deal with. People would end up relying on it more and more, until they couldn't live without it. I saw the name of the medicine written on the bottle, Neurocalm X. It made me shiver. I turned to the being, finally speaking, though I already knew the answer. What is this? The being didn't speak. It didn't need to. I knew what it meant. The warning was clear. The being turned toward me, and though it didn't speak a single word, its message was clear. Warn them. Stay away from this medication. Flashes of the future rushed through my mind, like snapshots of a world yet to unfold. I saw Neurocalm X being celebrated at first. Doctors would eagerly prescribe it, believing it was the answer to pain. The media would call it a medical breakthrough, a revolution in how we manage suffering. Everyone would think it was a miracle. But soon, the truth would begin to surface. People would start noticing strange side effects, things doctors couldn't explain. The feds would start investigating. What seemed like a small problem would quickly spiral into something much bigger. Investigations would uncover hidden truths, and what began as a quiet concern would become a full-blown crisis. The nation would be shaken. But what struck me the hardest wasn't just the physical damage. This medication would cause deeper harm. It would affect the soul, especially for Christians. I saw it in vivid detail. The drug would create a sense of anger that wasn't there before. People would become easily irritated, quick to anger, and they wouldn't know why. Small disagreements would turn into bitter conflicts. Families, churches, and friendships that had once been united would be torn apart by rage. It would create divisions where unity once stood. But the damage didn't stop there. The drug would also attack something even more precious: the ability to forgive. People would hold on to old wounds, allowing bitterness to grow. They would struggle to let go of past hurts, even when they knew they should. The heart would become hardened, and forgiveness would feel like a distant memory. People would find themselves trapped in cycles of anger, bitterness, and resentment. The worst part, though, would be the spiritual numbness. I saw how the more people relied on this medication, the less they would rely on God. Their hearts would become cold to the voice of the Spirit. Sin would no longer convict them as it once did. They would grow indifferent to the things of God, and that feeling of being drawn to His presence would slowly fade. It wasn't just the body that would suffer, it was the soul. The longer they used Neurocalm X, the more their relationship with God would be strained. The warning rang in my ears, as clear and urgent as anything I had ever heard. Stay away from this medication. The being's presence shifted, and in that stillness, it shared one final, profound revelation. Fear must not dictate choices. I saw a future where people, overwhelmed by fear, would make decisions without wisdom. Some would panic and refuse all medical help, afraid of the harm it might cause, rejecting even treatments that could benefit them. Others, driven by blind trust, would accept anything given to them, never questioning the consequences. Both extremes would lead to destruction. Believers must not act out of fear, but should instead seek God's guidance in every decision. The Bible does not condemn medicine, but it calls for discernment. It warns against addiction, drunkenness, and following the ways of the world without seeking divine wisdom. Whether choosing a medication, a lifestyle, or how to obey government laws, every decision must be filtered through prayer and Scripture. As the being spoke these final words, I felt a deep peace wash over me, and just as quickly as the vision had begun, it ended. I was no longer floating in space, no longer standing in the lab. I was awake, gasping for breath, feeling the weight of the world on me. I realized that I was no longer in my body, no longer among the living. But I wasn't afraid. I had been given a message, a warning to share with others, and now I have shared it with you.